Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 most horrifying experiences I've had in video games. Now for anyone unsure, when I say horror experience, this could be a specific moment from a horror game, or it necessarily doesn't have to be from a horror game. It could just be from a regular game that just had a horrific moment that stuck with you over the years. Another thing it could be is just an overall feeling you got from playing a horror game. But before I dive into my top 10 list, I want to be giving you some honorable mentions. Alright, so Arkham Knight was one of those games where the second I picked it up, I refused to put it down. Just like most open world games, you're free to roam around the entire map as you please, but there's just some things a player can't anticipate. This specific scare came out of nowhere, and with the power of modern gaming now, me and everyone else will forever be on the edge of our seats because after almost crapping my pants, I now know that anything is possible. Next on my honorable mentions list is Kid Icarus. Growing up, I used to always be afraid of this game. I was just a little kid when I experienced this freaky moment. To some, this might not even faze them, but as a kid I thought this game had glitched out or something. The music changes, the Grim Reaper goes nuts, and in my opinion, I think this is enough to make any little kid playing this years ago frightened. Last on my honorable mentions list is Limbo in its entirety. The game itself uses a unique art style and feels very creepy from the start. The game is filled with traps, monsters, and horrific imagery. There's a lot of unexpected scares in this game, but even just walking around with the wind and the footsteps of your character is enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. Now that we got those out of the way, we can go into my personal top 10 horror experiences in video games. Starting out with number 10 would have to be Alan Wake. So this game as a whole was a truly frightening experience. Worrying about keeping your flashlight on is something that everyone is bound to do when roaming around in the dark. Enemies aren't just normal bad guys you can punch or shoot. You have to make sure you have the necessary flashlight power to break the shadow on the figure before you can engage. So when players are faced with multiple enemies, it's really difficult to break their shadows unless you have some sort of survival tools such as a road flare. This game really left an impact on me and always kept me nervous while playing. Number 9 is actually a really underrated game on the original Nintendo system, Monster in My Pocket. This game was one of the first titles I played in the original NES. To be honest, it's more of an action game than horror, but the universe and the characters you play as say otherwise. You have the option to play as the monster or the vampire, but the characters are smaller than ever. The thing that always left me looking over my shoulder as a kid was the fact that these levels take place in bedrooms, kitchens, or even the front doorstep of your house, which made my mind wander as a kid and even gave me nightmares. Alright, this one was a little hard to place on my list, but either way, number 8 goes to the surprise hit, The Last of Us.
Tommy! Holy shit! What just happened?
This is one of the first games I've played where a full cutscene could render around the character in real time. That alone was something to let the player know to expect the unexpected. But anyone who's played this game knows that the scariest aspect of them all was the clickers. The fact that you have to search and salvage for anything that helps you to survive makes you always feel uneasy. Also, from the beginning of the game, you really connect with the main character, so it helps you imagine if you were put in that situation. So number 7 on my list is a unique entry for sure, but it goes to none other than my favorite video game, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. From the beginning of the game, this has a really freaky premise. Regardless of if this falls under the action-adventure genre, this game has a lot of disturbing and horrific aspects in it. I mean, from the get-go, you're thrown into an end-of-the-world scenario. You have 3 days to save the world, which makes the player uneasy from the start. From the frightening mask transformations, an alien invasion side quest, and even a song you can play to make creepy statues of yourself. But nothing compares to the story of Pamela and her father. Originally, this girl doesn't want you coming into her house due to the zombies outside and the condition of her father. One would assume that he just has some sort of sickness, but this scene was enough for anyone to almost cry out of absolute fear. Imagining a family member becoming a monster is truly horrifying, and this game really got you involved in all the side characters' lives, so you really felt for her. Another little aspect is the infamous Ben Drowned story. I won't really dive into that, but if you guys are curious, check it out for yourself. So this game as a whole has Resident Evil fans divided. Either way, I really liked how they made you feel helpless and scared, so making it to number 6 on my list is Resident Evil 4. Right off the bat, players are thrown into this scenario where you have limited ammo and the infected villagers attacking you aren't even speaking English. Just when you thought it wasn't too bad, this big bastard comes for you right away. But don't worry, that doesn't even come close to these things. Known as regenerators, everything about them is creepy. Their breathing, their look, and hell, even their movement was enough to freak me out when I was younger. But if I were to narrow this game down to a specific moment, it would have to be the oven zombie. Another early instance of something happening out of nowhere in real time. Next on my list will probably surprise a lot of people. Fans of the Castlevania franchise will probably tell you that Castlevania 64 is the worst entry in the series, but for me, it's number 5 on my list for numerous reasons. Although fans criticize this aspect as a negative, I really enjoyed the fact that the game didn't really have that much of a soundtrack. Hearing nothing but the wind and the echo of your footsteps was truly chilling. Entering the maze guard made me feel so nervous because no one knew what was coming around the corner. And this is the part that really got me. After playing one of the main vampire boss fights, all seems like it went well, but you may have forgot one thing. That's right, you have to fight the girl he bit and disposed of earlier. I'm not saying this game is perfect, but it sure did a hell of a job scaring the shit out of me when I was younger. There's a ton of first-person horror games out there, but none of them come close to my number 4 pick, Outlast. So this game as a whole just drew me in from the start. You play as an investigative journalist checking out a dilapidated psychiatric hospital. The thing that sets this game apart? Well, how about the fact that you don't have an attack button? This game keeps you on the edge of your seats and feels like you're on a timer due to the fact that the camera you use to see in the dark areas has a battery meter. So if that runs out, you're screwed. And I have to add, standing in an elevator and seeing that someone's trying to break in such a confined space, oh my god, so nerve-wracking. When you're spotted, the only option you have in this game is to hide as quick as you can and pray that they didn't see you go into your hiding place. I actually share played this game with a friend back in the day because I didn't want to play it alone. This game will definitely stick with me as a memorable horror experience. So getting down to the last few, we're coming to number 3, which is actually another title in the Resident Evil series. This time I'm talking about Resident Evil 7. Now, even when the original beginning hour demo came out, this got fans, including myself, excited for the direction the franchise was going. Its first-person style made this game a truly unique experience. So first off was the ghost of a dead woman appearing randomly throughout the house.
Unfucking believable! This is the last time I work with that guy.
And those damn mannequins moving on their own. The creative team behind this game truly knew how to make players frightened. Going into dark basements in video games, or hell, even in real life, always freaked me out, but this moment did not help it at all. And the scariest part of the game? Running away from Jack Baker in his house. It doesn't seem like he's following you anymore, and nothing's behind you, but guess what? The game finally brought the series back to its horrific roots, and its mysteries, Easter eggs, and all-around creepiness left fans of this franchise scarred for life. Alright, so I'm not usually a fan of these point-and-click or quick-time event style of games, but Until Dawn just pulled it off so well, and that's why it made it to number 2 on my list.
What's up with him?
This game takes place in a remote cabin in the woods, and it feels like a classic 80s horror film brought to life in a video game. This game utilizes a mechanic called the butterfly effect, and players have multiple different choices to make, and after you've made it, you can't go back unless you start the game all the way at the beginning. Now, with that already making you feel under pressure, this game makes use of motion in your controller to stay perfectly still. Certain parts of the game you can't move the controller whatsoever, and if you do, the main villain will spot you. Although this game did have a lot of jump scares and frightening moments, the real scary part of this game is making tough decisions under an enormous amount of pressure. Now we're finally at number 1, and as a huge fan of horror movies, TV shows, and video games, nothing was as horrifying as the Silent Hills demo, PT. This game was originally uploaded on the PlayStation Store and pitched as a new horror game from the mysterious 7780 studio. You wake up and you have no choice really but to go through the door. All you see is a barren hallway, so the only option you really have is to look around for clues about what to do. But after finding nothing, the only really thing you can do now is go through the next door. Until you realize you're in an endless loop. Once again, like The Last of Us, their game is playing all the scares around you in real time, so the transition to something happening is seamless. Even after a few days of this release, players were struggling to figure out what to even do in this game. As you got further, things became even more mysterious and creepy. After a while, fans cracked the code on how to beat this, and it was revealed at the end of this game when you escaped the house that you were actually playing a demo for Hideo Kojima's Silent Hills. This game is so simple yet undeniably complex, and luckily I'm one of the few people who still has this game on their PS4 hard drive. There you have it, guys. There's my top 10 list. And what are some of your horrifying video game experiences? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.